dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're continuing our conversation with national security correspondent Dave Patterson right here on Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network. I remain your host, Mark Angelides. So, Dave, earlier in the show, we were talking about what Ukraine might want out of a peace negotiation. You mentioned the once thriving port of Mariupol. You mentioned control of Kharkiv. And I'm sorry, I forgot where the nuclear power plant is. Where's that?
That's in the southeast of the occupied area.
Okay, so those would be like key chips that Ukraine would want for under any peace negotiation. What are they willing to let go, do you think, if anything? Because we heard, and I find this quite interesting, because reports seem to change over the last week or so. First, we had President Zelensky saying, we can't give up any territory because it's against our constitution, which I thought was quite a strange thing. It's like, well, I wonder how many other countries have tried that approach before they were taken over by an invader. Said, sorry, chaps. Sorry, barbarian Huns crossing our borders. That's illegal. You got to go back. We can't let you take the territory because it's against the law. We just don't have the mechanisms to allow it, which seems strange. But then the reports started kind of changing, and that was they can't, and I heard reports that they can't cede any territory that's not already taken. What's the reality there? What's missing in the interpretation?
I don't think there's anything. I mean, this idea of they can't cede, that's their bargaining chip.
Sure.
I mean, if you can, get 10 cents on the dollar, why wouldn't you? Take this old field that can't produce anything more. We're going to give it to you. I think that going into the negotiations, I mean, obviously everything's on the table. I mean, you know you can't have any land, and we want all Earth back. So it's going to be a tough one to hold. But then you start to realize that there are realities that you have to consider. And if you do want to stop the killing, then there are some things that are just simply fait accompli. I mean, I'm sorry, the Russians are there, and you're not going to displace them. On the other hand, there are areas that are in conflict, under dispute. Now, those could easily be part of a Putin give back, because he's just wasting people, 5,000 a week, as one report had it. And you can't, I mean, even Putin, for Putin, it's not sustainable.
Sure. We discussed, I think it was probably a year and a half ago now, that Russia's never really engaged in any international situation where it hasn't been willing to throw 500,000 people into the mix and then see what happens from there. I think they've actually reached that point now, haven't they? At least in terms of people who can't go back to the battlefield. So that's the dead and the, in some ways, critically injured. And I think they're probably at about 500,000 losses now, aren't they? Is that about right?
I think all told, there's 1 million on both sides, 1 billion something, plus. But yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. That it's very difficult to tell because you don't have accurate reports from the Russians, and not really exceptionally accurate from the Ukrainians either.
So what would Vladimir Putin see as an acceptable offer to quit prosecuting the war? Actually, sorry, before we get to that, I think what we're seeing, as you say, there's like 5,000 people a week getting killed or critically injured here. And I think part of that is because they know that the end's coming. And I might have this wrong, but they know that there's an end to fighting somewhere down the lines, and they want to be in the best negotiating position. And when you say that there's some disputed territories, the more of those disputed territories that they can tip in their favor to say, now we're in control of this, that gives them more of a hand to say, well, we've already got this, so we'll keep this, rather than this is in the mix at the moment. So there's really a larger push forward, which is also the reason why I think maybe Vladimir Putin doesn't want a ceasefire either before a peace deal. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that's right, but also we can't forget that there is this other cudgel out there in the wings, and it's called Trump's economic hammer, and he could bring absolute disaster to Russia's economy, and Putin knows this. And so that is some pressure for him to start to be more reasonable.
Mm. And so what we're talking here is he's applying pressure to Russia's customers, for energy customers. That's specific.
Yeah, the secondary tariffs, and that's really a blow, especially. And see, Trump has in his back pocket the fact that, oh look, hey, don't worry about the 100% tariffs on your buying Russian oil. We'll sell you all the oil and natural gas you can use because we have that much.
Yeah. It's almost a mafioso tactic.
It is.
For those of our listeners who have read the great Richard Condon of Manchurian Candidate fame and his Pritzi family books, you'll be very familiar with that particular tactic that's being deployed. So let's get back to what Putin hopes to get out of any deal. So he will want, I think, recognition that Crimea is now no longer disputed. I think that's on the cards. What say to that?
Yeah, I think that's right, because I mean that's just reality, whether you like it or not.
All right, number 2, he's going to want some parts of the Donbass region.
Yeah, I think that probably the best that Zelensky can hope for is the February 24th, 2022 line in Donbass.
Okay, what is that? That's basically a midline down the Donbass.
Pretty
region,
much.
is that?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So divided east-west on that.
Right.
Putin will turn around and say he wants the west side of it.
Yeah, right.
Okay, now also on that, I'm thinking, and so what I've been trying to do, David, I'm sure this is exactly what you do as well. You try and gameplay. If you were each individual in the situation, what would it take for you to stop prosecuting the war, or to say, okay, good, we're done? And I think the third thing, and I might be way off base on this, is I think that Russia wants to go into business with the United States and Ukraine in the Donbass region.
I think that's I think that's a possibility, because Putin consistently talked about the benefits of trade after after the conflict, and he made a point of that up in Alaska, and the fact is that China, North Korea, and Iran are no surrogates in trade for Europe and the United States.
Yeah, very much. I mean, Europe and the United States are the two biggest markets for customers, right? Rather than the sellers. China's a great market, it's a great seller's market, because they're producing everything, or at least they're third country shipping parts that they're doing, but they're not buying, right? They don't want, I need a pair of American blue jeans. No. They want the 90% off ripoffs that are basically exactly the same, but made down the road. So yeah, I really think there's going to be a business element to, if there is a peace deal, there's got to be a business element to it, because Russia has natural resources. Russia has a fair amount of technical know-how, but when we discuss things like future technologies, AI, semiconductors, chips, things like this, Russia's not even in the room, are they? Currently, they're not even in the room. But without being part of that dynamic technological push forwards, I think that they risk being left behind. I suspect that Vladimir Putin knows this.
I think he does, and although they're fairly resourceful, I mean, they've managed to modify chips taken out of refrigerators for precision ordnance, and but I think overall you're right about that. I mean, people don't think of Russia when they think of cutting edge technology.
Yeah, they haven't been to the cutting edge since they sent the dog Laika out and about. That was a long time ago.
And a one-way trip.
On a one-way trip, poor Laika. Dave, we're going to be back with you after this short break. Thanks for sticking around.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.